All right, good evening, everybody. Today is July 9th, 2025, and awesome thing about today is Bitcoin hit another all-time high, just over 111,000, almost 112,000. Who knows what'll happen throughout the night this evening? You never know, but hit an all-time high today. Feels good to be a Bitcoiner, so I wanted to do a book review this evening and talk about one of the best Bitcoin books out there right now. This is called The Big Print by Larry Lepard. It came out late 2024, December 2024. So it's been out for about 7 months now. And if you haven't read this book yet, you're wrong. You need to get your hands on it and read it. And then after you read it, pass it on to somebody else. I have plans to pass this on to a deserving person. At some point in time, I just got to figure out who that's going to be. I'm going to give it to him for free and say, hey, read this book. The truth will set you free. So it's really cheap on Amazon. Larry said in several interviews that there's no money to be made in writing books. Unfortunately, he's right with that. However, the value and the content that he's put in this book will pay him dividends in the future in just good graces with his audiences and things like that. You know, people are going to be clamoring towards Larry because of the wisdom in this book, and I'm certainly one of those people. So The Big Print, I've actually read this book several months back. I bought it, I think, in January, soon after it came out. Read it in about a week's time. I'm a really slow reader, but it took me about a week to get through it, not because it was dry. I actually thoroughly enjoyed it and couldn't wait to finish it. But this is probably the most well-rounded Bitcoin book that you could give somebody. If you're new to Bitcoin, you should start with this book. If you've been in Bitcoin for a long time, you should read this book. There's something for everybody. There's something for people that are, just getting started and don't want to get buried down in economic theory and mathematics, things like that. It doesn't get that kind of detailed and burdensome. And then for people that have been in Bitcoin for a long time, it gives you a great history lesson of what's been going on since we've aborted the sound money standard in 1971 with the departure from the gold standard. And it just talks about how, society's basically declined over the last 50 years due to fiat currencies and inflation. And so it has a lot of good charts showing what's going on, why, where, who's involved, who are the major players and whatever. And aside from that, I mean, you will learn so much about Bitcoin, so much about history. You'll learn even about other asset classes and why they're not, as good of performers as Bitcoin. So Larry talks about real estate, equities like the S&P 500 and everything like that, and their performance, and compares it to Bitcoin and describes why, it's not all that it seems there as being a good thing. Real estate essentially reflects the expansion of M2 money supply. So everybody, normies, will tell you that, buying a house is great because it goes up in value over time. So, that's a great investment to a normie. So houses typically appreciate 3% a year, year over year. And a normie would tell you that's great advice. You should just buy a house, do whatever you can, get into a house, buy it. It goes up. Fantastic. You're great. You're getting ahead. Well, people that actually understand money know that keeping up with inflation is actually not getting ahead. If anything, you're breaking even. And the people that really know money know that inflation is not 3%. It's significantly higher than that, likely more closer to double digits as of today. During massive money printing eras when it was approaching double digits as officially reported in the CPI, you can guarantee when inflation was around 8-9% in 21, 22, 23, it was really double digits for a lot of people. If you look at your own baskets of goods, things that you buy, utilities, food, health insurance, all those types of things, you were definitely paying more than double digits. So we know that already. CPI is a load of crap. So some personal takeaways from this book. One thing I really admire and appreciate about Larry is he's an old top for sure, but he has a young mind. And what I mean by that is he's a traditional sound money guy, has been from the get-go. And even regarding that fact about himself, he's been able to analyze a new sound money, which is Bitcoin, and realize that it is better, it trumps what he previously thought was the soundest money on earth, which in his case was gold, which was, it's a good monetary asset compared to currency or fiat currency. So I really appreciate that, because that shows that he was able to recognize something, learn from it, and adopt it. And so many people are unwilling to do that, especially in finance. There's a lot of stubborn people that had something that worked for them, and they're not willing to change their ways. They're not willing to learn anything new, and they just keep parroting the same thing over and over and over again. This is what you need to do to get wealthy. This is what you need to do. Don't care about anything else. Don't learn anything else. Just keep your head in the sand and do this. And it's usually the old tops that are talking like that. Well, money changes. It has changed through the course of history. It talks about that in this book, okay? And if you don't change with it and get to the hardest form of money, you will be wiped out. It's a theory called Gresham's Law that talks about how, the weaker currencies are driven out by the stronger currencies, and everything will assimilate into the strongest currency, the lowest common denominator, which now, as of 2009, January 2009, is Bitcoin. And I believe over the 16-year history of Bitcoin, there's never been a better time, a safer time for individuals to get into it. Prior to, let's say, like the 2020 era, it was a little bit risky. The exchanges that were involved in Bitcoin were not the most honest or had very much integrity. There was a lot of failures there. Custodying Bitcoin privately was very challenging. Holding it on exchange had its own issues as well. So really prior to like 2020, it was pretty difficult for individuals to understand Bitcoin as far as knowing how to control it and keep it in your own custody. There's people that figured it out and are holding that Bitcoin still today, and they're doing just fine, which is fantastic. But after 2020, we really saw some better exchanges come into the fold, and some more honest exchanges. And then we also saw huge mass uptakes in technology, hardware wallets, those types of things, software wallets, things like that, and education, the proliferation of Bitcoin education. So there's so many good YouTube channels out there giving away Bitcoin education for free. You just have to pay attention and learn it. So my recommendation is to read books like this and watch YouTube content to educate yourself on Bitcoin and start figuring this stuff out. It really costs next to nothing to get started. And it's honestly not that complicated for most people. So it is a little bit technical. If you're not that comfortable with computers, those types of things, you can get help and pay for services to kind of do the white glove, like hand holding, and show you how to do those things, which is great. There's a lot of services out there that do that. I'm not going to recommend any, but I'm personally a big fan of Matthew Cratter's Bitcoin University. He does a lot of hands-on stuff. He does has really good tutorials on how to do advanced, beginner and advanced things with Bitcoin. But there's several different types of services that you can employ. So pursue those services, read the big print, and when you're done with it, pass it on to somebody else. And by the time you get through this book, if you really pay attention to it and understand what's going on in it, I can almost guarantee that if you're not buying Bitcoin, you will be buying Bitcoin after reading this book. If you're a normie and have no idea what's within the pages of this, and you get through it and understand at the end of it, you are going to realize that you are getting screwed. You are getting rug pulled. Our money means nothing. Fiat currency means nothing. It can be debased overnight. It has been in several developed countries before, It wipes people out. Everything they worked for decades gets stolen from them. During the massive money printing of the 2020s, the boomers, the people that had built up all this wealth and over several decades of their lives had that eroded so quickly, and there was nothing they could do about it. A lot of them were asleep and haven't even realized the damage that has been caused yet. They will when they go to retire and they realize all their bills are significantly higher than what they were anticipating. And unfortunately, a lot of them are probably going to end up Walmart greeters in their late 70s because they weren't prepared, they weren't paying attention, they thought they were doing the right thing. And it's nobody's fault. It's not their faults. They just, went along with emotions and did what they thought was right. They listened to their employers that said, just buy, stocks, mutual funds in a 401k and you'll be set. Just do it for a long time. And at the end of that time, you'll have a bunch of money. Okay. That might have worked in traditional finance for certain decades, but that's going away. When we have $37 trillion in national debt, not including all the unfunded liabilities of Social Security, Medicare, all these things that we don't have the money to pay it back. They're going to debase and have to get that money from somewhere, or that wealth from somewhere, and it's going to come from you. So the only way you can stop that, the only way you can stop that is Bitcoin in your own private custody, where nobody knows the keys, only you, and you can control it and do your own transactions on chain using your own node. You're literally becoming an invincible monetary warrior at that point in time. So to people that are in Bitcoin, you know exactly what I'm talking about. To people that are new to Bitcoin, start going down the rabbit hole today. I highly encourage you to start with this book. It is interesting, it is easy to read, and you can get through it in just a couple of days. If you're a fast reader, you can probably get through it in a couple hours, honestly. And it will open your mind in ways that if you're a normie, you never even would have considered before. So big shout out to Larry Lepard. He does a ton of podcasts. If you're not into reading, listen to his podcast. He's really a fun guy to listen to. And my closing remarks on Larry as a person, as an individual, the other thing that I really admire about him is he's always stuck, I should say, to his principles. So there's a section in this book where he talks about being in a room, and there's a speaker on the room, and he's talking about, printing more money, doing bailouts, all these types of things for the automakers in 2008, which created the financial crisis there, the mortgage loan crisis, and the bailouts that followed for GM, Ford, all those big auto manufacturers. And he was one out of dozens that stood up and said, this isn't right. We shouldn't be doing this. We're stealing from future generations, something along those lines, right? So he raised his hand and said, this is not right. I don't feel good about this. And everybody kind of scoffed and moved on. It talks about it in this book. But then afterward, he said, everybody broke, and there was either an intermission or the speech was over. And he had several people come up to him and say, you know what, Larry, you're right. Yeah, I agree with you. But nobody else had the courage to stand up and say something. Only Larry did. And it's made me realize, that is one of the most valuable characteristics a person could have, is to say and do what is right in the moment, even though it's difficult. It's really the definition of integrity. And I found that in my life, things like debt, things like fiat currency, fiat jobs, things like that, have influenced me and pushed me to go against what I think is right. Think of all the pressure that happened in 2020 to do certain medical procedures to yourself just to keep your job. And how many people were pressured into doing that by employers or by friends, by family, whatever. And a lot of those people knew deep down they didn't want to do that. They shouldn't do that. But they had debt obligations. They had mortgages. They have car loans. They have medical debt, all these different things that they're obligated to pay. So if their only source of income is going to be threatened by this one thing, you know, it became a huge issue. And I realized that I faced that a lot in my life, and I don't want to be forced into those situations anymore. I want to be acting under my own free will. And fiat currency and debt do not allow you to act under your own free will. Bitcoin is the only thing that allows you to do that. So that's why I'm in it. That's why I'm going to continue to be in it forever. I'm never going back, and you should too. So things to consider. Anyway, get yourself a copy of this book, read it, and enjoy. If you've already read it, leave me a comment and let me know what you thought about it. But I'll see you guys in the next one.